Hello everyone! We are going to be going live with Dakota Bailey today. We are going to be talking all about cold calling 101, how to get, a good deal to a great deal. We're going to be talking about negotiation tactics. I'm super excited to have him on here, and I'm just waiting for him. Oh, and here he is. I'm going to add you on. I'm going to send you a... and it should pull you in. Hello!
Yo.
Welcome, and thank you for hopping on today at 5 p.m. Pacific time.
Yes, happy to be here. This is my first time actually going live on Instagram, I
Oh,
believe. So,
really?
yeah,
Oh, that's awesome. I love being people's first, so this is great.
yeah, thank you.
Well, thanks for also making it work with the, time correction
100%.
and
I
everything.
don't know if you saw my story, but yeah, I was like running another call and I was like, somebody was asking some questions. I was like, guys, I'm so sorry I cannot answer your questions. I got to go. And so I bounced off and then I'm like, oh, snap.
Yeah, I saw him. Gosh, I felt so bad when I saw that. I was like, oh my gosh. But thank you so much again for making it work. Did you want to start off by kind of introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about how you got started and where you're at today?
Yeah, let's do it. Yo, what up, Danny? Or Dan? He's in the All-Star program too.
Oh yeah,
Good to see
I
you.
met him at a WealthCon. He's
Yeah,
awesome. Him
he's a
and his
good
wife
dude.
have this great like they're redoing reselling purses, like designer purses and everything. So they got it set up over
That's
there.
go. That's awesome. Yeah. So a little bit about me. So my background is mostly I started off in car sales. So I was selling cars. I started when I was 20 years old, actually. Before that, I was just working like a lot of physical labor jobs. I worked at like the YMCA with kids. I worked in landscaping. I worked at the street department. I didn't even know that I had like a knack for sales. I like to talk to people, but I didn't have a lot of opportunities to talk to people. Something that I always like to share with people, especially if they don't know my story, is that I didn't start off as like a super good salesperson either. So I was good at talking to people. I was good at getting to the closing table, but I sucked at closing. I could not close anything. And so that hopefully will give a lot of other people hope too that it was not natural. This is not a natural kind of thing. It's something that you learn, it's something you develop, something you practice, and you can learn from other people. So anyway, started off in car sales. My first month, I did end up selling like 14. I closed 0 of my own deals, but I was just hungry. I was just running after them. So I did pretty well in car sales, and I did that for around 6 years. In 2018, I started getting into real estate, and so I was doing both real estate and car sales at the same time. So we were building a rental portfolio with my business partner, Tony, while working at the dealership, and I was using the dealership to fund the like basically the refinances or have income in order to do that. So yeah, then we got to like 20 some rentals. And then in 2020, that's when we joined Ryan Pineda's program. And he convinced us, he's like, bro, you got to get out of this whole like rental idea and you got to build a sales team and actually create a real business. And so that's when we're like, okay, well, actually it took us about a year and a half. I'm like, nah, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Eventually we listened and we actually built a team. Now we got 4 acquisitions guys, a dispositions person. We got a team of like 15 people now. And yeah, we're doing like somewhere around like 20. We're probably averaging about 25 deals a month now. Just last month, we just set our record. We did 41 deals last month. So, and that's just acquisition contracts. So it was pretty cool.
That's incredible. And I mean, so it sounds like you kind of got over that hump of like not being able to close your deals now, or are people still closing them for you?
Yeah. Well, that's a funny story actually, because other people are still closing them for me, but it's a little bit different in the way that that's being done, I would say.
Okay. Do you think it was a mind shift too, or was it more of just repetition and just getting kind of through that suck phase that I feel like we all kind of go through, just getting through it by consistency and repetition, or do you think mindset had something to do with it too?
I think mindset has to do with determination beforehand because I was already like I was willing to go run after people. Like a lot of people think I'm this extroverted person when really I'm not necessarily the most extroverted. I'm good in conversation when I get one-on-one, but I'm not the kind of person that likes to initiate conversation. But when I have a goal, when I am interested in like, okay, this is what you have to do, I am willing to put myself in uncomfortable situations. So that was already there. The rest of the learning was really from just hearing another person do it and then yeah, just replicating what they say. So yeah.
That's incredible. And so you said you do mainly flips and wholesaling now?
Yes. Yep.
rentals?
Yeah,
Okay.
so we have around 80 rentals now. That's the funniest part too, is like focusing on the business itself kind of generated more rentals on the back end anyway, which is crazy because we were so focused on just rentals. And if you just focus on flipping and creating a business for it, then the rentals kind of happen naturally. So I found that out, and that's what Ryan said all along. But
Of course, I love it. And you say when you say you're on Ryan's team, so I know you said you're a sales trainer. What? So you just train people to cold call or negotiate, or what does that kind of look like?
yeah, so it's funny. I'm not really on Ryan's team. I just help him. I don't get paid or anything like that. Honestly, I do it all for free. I like to help people. I also do get into the program for free, which is kind of cool.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, that's fun. But I don't work for him. But yeah, what I do is I lead the sales like training. So basically, I teach anybody who's in his program, and then a lot of his sales guys actually come to join on too. So they're like, "Oh, dude, I want to learn sales," and so I'm like, "All right, jump on the call." And so they jump on the call sometimes too. His actual guys, they got yelled at for a couple times, but anyway, they'll come on the calls. But mostly it's the people who was in his program who are like doing deals all over the place. And
Mhm.
then I basically teach them how to cold call, teach them about incoming calls because like cold calling is not the only way. I mean, obviously we have direct mail, we have TV ads, we run a lot of different marketing. So
Mhm.
basically, I show them two conversations. The interesting thing is in a cold call and an incoming call, the only difference is really going to be step one. Instead of saying like, "Hey, this is Dakota," I'm going to say, "Hey, this is LTD, and this is Dakota. How can I help you?" Instead of like, "This is the reason why I'm reaching out." So really, the rest of the conversation is pretty dang similar.
Okay. So I guess for a newbie starting out, they've done a couple deals, but they're looking to scale and they just can't get past. It's like they want to call, they know it's a good deal, but just getting on the phone and being held up. What kind of advice would you give someone who is looking to become better at that?
Okay, so somebody who's looking to make their first call, man, I think very systematically, kind of like. So I'm more like, okay, if I make this call, I mess it up, I'm going to then get better. And so I look so far into the future that I'm like, okay, this is going to make me better. I might not get this deal, but I'm going to get closer and closer and closer. And if I learn this skill, I'm going to be able to use this forever. So I don't necessarily just look at everything as like right now. And if I get this deal, I still care about like doing the best that I can. But I always focus on, okay, if I learn this thing really good, I'm going to be able to use this in every area. And so it's funny because I always tell people to not even just do it just in real estate. You can go do this at garage sales. Like that's a really fun way to like kind of practice your negotiation skills because it's the same exact thing no matter what, whether you're doing houses, whether you're doing apartment buildings, whether you're negotiating a DVD at a garage sale. So I actually used to do this. Like I was dating a girl at the time, and we just like to have fun. So I was like, let's go just buy and sell stuff. So there was this like globe, and it was like this precious jewels globe, and I was like, it was listed for $20. I negotiated it down to $5. We listed it on the market, like on Facebook Marketplace the next day. We sold it for $100. We made $95. And so it's always just it's so fun to be able to use those skills. And then I started doing it and then I kept negotiating. I was giving her all the money. Then I'm like, wait a second, why am I doing this? I'm like, this is not a good ROI, like a good return on investment because I can spend my time using the same exact skills that I learned to do something different. And so that's what I would say is like think about the skills that you're going to develop as opposed to just worrying about the deal right now, like making money right now. Think about the skills that you continue to develop that you can use forever. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's what my advice would be.
I like that. Because I feel like it takes the pressure off too. That like I feel like that fear comes from the pressure of having to close this deal, and you're like, but if you go into it thinking that you're not even going to get the deal, but still hope for the best, expect the worst type of scenario, I feel like you can have that mindset, and then maybe it'll take a little bit pressure off,
100%.
especially for the
Yeah,
people
and
starting out.
always ask yourself too. What I always ask myself at the end of every one is like, is there anything that I could have done that would have made it a different outcome? And I always look at it just the same way that you said. I cannot control the outcome. I tell our acquisitions guys this. You cannot force somebody to sell, but you can change the likeliness of it. You can change the probability based on what you say, how you act. The odds do change. And so the question is there anything that you could do to change the odds? And if there is, cool. let's figure out what that is, practice it, change it, do it better next time, see if that helps change the odds. If there's not, then you're like, all right, give yourself a congratulations and then go on to the next one, because sometimes you do the right steps and you don't get the result that you wanted, because people are people and they make their own choices. We don't control people, but we can't influence them.
Yes, I love that. And how do you personally identify a motivated seller? And do you guys only focus on kind of a criteria? So if you were going to rate someone 1 to 10, 10 being the most motivated, 1 being the least motivated, where on that scale do you kind of not follow up versus you always follow up or spend the most time on?
Oh, that's a tough one. I am the king of follow up. I love following up. So like, unless they're like, even if they said, okay, I want the most amount of money, blah blah blah, and then I see they stop and sold, I would mark them dead lead. That way, I'm not mentally thinking about them, but I put them on a drip campaign that automatically follows up with them, because I just don't like to give up any lead, and then like I always think there's an opportunity there. But what I would say for motivation is we ask a couple different questions. So our goal, I'm going to go back to our goal, because a lot of people think that salespeople are just manipulators. We're just pushing these people to sell their properties cash. And people do get it kind of confused, where they're like, they think that we can make somebody want to sell their property based on what we say when the motivation's not there. That's just not the case. The motivation has to be there. Then we're working to find out how to solve their problem. So what I teach our acquisitions guys is our goal is not to get them to sell their property for cash. Our goal is to help them make a decision, whether they want to sell it for cash and for speed and convenience, whether they want to list it on the market or whether they want to stay there the rest of our lives. Our goal is to ask good questions and find out, what do you actually want to do? If we can figure out what they want to do by asking those good questions, whenever they start to get uneasy about making the decision, because that's what got them in the mess in the first place, we can apply pressure because we know it's what's best for them, because that's what they said they wanted and what is actually affecting them. So that is always our goal, not to just go in and like buy properties for, low value. That's obviously what we do, but our goal is to help them with a decision. So whatever way that goes, it's easier. And then that also, again, takes the pressure off of you trying to convince them that you're the best choice. No, you're an option. And then you're asking questions. And when they can tell that you don't have a bias and you're not just trying to shove a cash offer down their throat, they're actually more open with you, because they can tell that you're trying to help them in what direction they want to go. Now, a question that we ask is, are you looking more for the simplest process, or are you looking to get the highest price? And so that's a question that we can kind of gauge their interest on what they're looking for. An analogy that I always use, and hopefully this helps you guys, is obviously I came from a dealership. So I say, have you ever traded in a vehicle? Most of the time people are like, yeah, I've traded in a vehicle. Okay, cool. Did you know that you could have sold that vehicle for more money if you would have listed on Facebook Marketplace and got retail value? Yeah, I knew that. But then I have to deal with this. I have to deal with loans. Correct. You have to deal with a lot of other stuff. So you traded it in knowing that the dealership was going to clean it up and make a profit on it, or it's at least very likely that that's going to happen, right? And so then if they do that, we're doing the same thing. We're offering the same service. They know they're not getting market value. We're very upfront about that. I don't really like the guys like, yeah, let me give you fair market value. It's like, nah, we're not really giving you fair market value. You're giving you trade-in value for speed and convenience. And so I just like to make sure that people understand what they're doing, see if it's the right decision for them. If it is, great. If it's not, great. There's going to be somebody that it is. So
yeah, no, that's a great analogy. And I'm almost convinced now that I feel like I've met so many investors who have used to be car salesmen, and now they're really, really, really good at sales. So I feel like every single car salesman out there can be a successful real estate investor because of the skills that they can bring to the table. Like, I don't know. I've come across quite a few. I don't know if
that's crazy.
I don't know if you've noticed that either, but
I've not noticed that, but I would say, like, as long as the car salesperson, there are a lot of car sales guys, especially nowadays, that have good ethics. Like, honestly, it's just like, that's an old thing in my opinion. Now, I saw some guys with some bad ethics too. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I saw them, I'm like, bro, I don't even know how you sell cars. So what I would say is the difference between a house and a car is an emotional attachment. And you don't have the brand recognition. So I worked at a Hyundai store, and I also worked at a Toyota store. So they have brand recognition. If you don't have brand recognition, now the person's got to trust you. And they have a lot more time to kind of think about it. Whereas when you're selling a car, you can apply a little bit more pressure because they're going to buy a car probably within the next day.
Yeah.
On the house, they also have some time to think about it after they sign. Like, if you sign a car, the deal's done in 2 hours. If you sign a house, it's like usually 2 weeks to 30 days to couple. It could take longer depending on title work and stuff. So you have to really make sure that you ask the person if that's the decision that they want to make. Now, some people are still going to back out anyway or try to, which we have different preventative measures for that. But that's the biggest difference is you can't high pressure somebody into houses as much. Like it's just not as effective. You got to really make sure it's the right decision for them, which I never like to high pressure people anyway. I always form everything in the way of a question.
I love that. And I feel like that also leads it to you too, because do you find that motivated sellers are more willing and more open to answer your questions with longer answers? Is that kind of one of the things that you feel identifies someone as a, motivated seller, or is it more of just you consider everyone a motivated seller if they're willing to sell a house, so you give everyone the same type of, I guess, amount of attention?
Yeah, these are tough questions. So because everybody's so different. And so if you have a type A personality, they're going to be defensive, even if they're highly motivated. They could be in foreclosure, about to lose their property. It's going to go to sheriff's sale in 2 weeks, and they're still like, I don't have to sell. And I'm like, you kind of do. Like, I'll just let it go back. And I'm like, well, that wouldn't be very effective for you, would it? And so it's like, some people are going to be defensive no matter what, because it's just their personality.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have that kind of people who are going to have that personality no matter what. Then you're going to have other people who just don't know what to do. They just want some help. So there's not really like a one size fits all for motivation and the way that people are. You just kind of have to like not necessarily take their words at face value,
Mm-hmm.
but listen for what they're actually saying. That's the craziest part, is a lot of times people will use little words, like descriptive words, to describe where they're at. And so if you listen very carefully, people will tell you more than what you think they're saying whenever they're speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, like when you're making offers, they're like, well, I mean, I think I might be able to come close to that. Now they're saying that they're willing to do something in that range. Like like they use vague language, and then basically what you want to do is take vague language and get very specific with it. But anyway, people just are very, when they speak, they're saying stuff, but you can't take it at face value.
Okay. And so if you get someone who is pushing back a lot and giving you kind of a hard time with answering your questions, what's like some like key lines that you guys usually come back with?
Somebody who's being challenging?
Yeah.
Okay, give me some
Like maybe not wanting
examples
to,
of.
like maybe you found them on Facebook Marketplace, but they don't want to give you their address, or they want, they don't want to tell you what, like how much they want for the house. They want you to give the number first.
Yeah. Nobody wants to tell you how much they want. I'll talk about that in a second if you want to get into that. That one's really fun. If they won't give the address, then usually what I would say is like, okay, well, how would I be able to look this up then? I usually kind of go to logic, and I just ask them, how can I help you? How would I be able to give you this information? Or like sometimes you call, or like let's just say you send them a letter. That's a very common one. You send them a letter. You say, hey, I'm interested in making an offer on your house. They call you. Hey, what's your offer? Well, I need the address for it. Well, you sent me this letter. Don't you know it? Well, we actually send out a couple different letters. And so the reason why we sent it was because we're buying properties in similar condition as yours. And so we were actually interested to see if you would consider an offer. Would you be open to one? Well, yeah, what's your offer? Well, I need to know a little bit more about the condition. Like, well, you sent me a letter. Don't you know about it? It's like, well, yes, I know a little bit about the outside, but obviously I don't know about the condition on the inside. So if I could do that, then I can get you, a higher price. And if they're like, nope, I don't need to tell you, they just tell me your offer, and I'll be like, okay, well, just so you know, my offer is going to have to, basically be dependent on the worst case scenario, because the less information you give me, the worse I have to assume that the condition is. Does that make sense? And they're like it kind of brings their defenses down, because all I'm using is like, do you understand what you're saying? And so I use logic a lot. I know that's sometimes it's very effective. Most of the time it's actually pretty effective, honestly. And so in order to get the price down, this is something that I learned. I can't remember. I think it was from Gino and Chandler, who actually were speaking at Ryan Pineda's event one time. But I heard him say something that's just straight gold. But I got to give them credit for it, because they're the first people I heard it from. They probably heard it from Steve Trang or somebody else. But anyway, it was whenever somebody's being super difficult to get the price, first thing I always do is ask them for the price, right? I always want to just see if they're going to give it to me. So I say, hey, how much are you, looking to get for the property? And if they're like, well, you're the professional, I thought you'd give me that. I always say, okay, well, do you happen to know like what your neighbor's house are selling for? And then if they say, yeah, they're sold for like 150. Okay, cool. So how much, with the condition of yours, how much were you hoping to get for yours then? And then once they give you a number, then I, go to another phrase. I'm like, okay, so if I was able to offer you cash and close quickly, what's the lowest you'd be willing to accept? And that phrase is a really good one to write down for anybody who's listening. That one has made us a lot of money. Then after they give us a number, let's just say they're like, well, for mine, I'd probably do 100. Okay, and so if I was unable to offer you 100,000, should I even like not tell you what I can do? And so then all I'm doing is asking these questions. And so I'm not even throwing out numbers. I'm just asking them, and they're going to negotiating against themselves. I never said what I could do, couldn't do. Let's just say that I could not get a number from them, and they're just being the worst. I would say, it looks like other investors, and just so you know, this isn't our offer or anything, but it looks like other investors in the area are paying somewhere around like 50 to 55,000. I mean, if another investor were to offer you that, what would you say? Most of the time, like, no, I never do that. I can't believe you. I'll be like, hey, I get it. And a lot of times we're able to offer, more than other investors. So how much would you need in order to feel comfortable with moving forward today? Then now they're like, they are more likely to give you the number because you just threw out the first number, but you never threw out a first number. I just want to remind people that you are not negotiating. You did not throw out an offer there. You said what other investors were offering. You didn't say what you would offer. And so that's a way to get people to feel more comfortable with actually throwing out their first number.
Yes, I love that. And it's so funny. That is one of the things I learned from you at WealthCon during the VIP luncheon. I was like, when you said that at the table, I was like, oh, because I feel like I get that a lot of pushback with that. And
100%.
people always get so sensitive too. And I always warn them, okay, this is I'm not trying to lowball you here. I don't want to hurt your feelings but they always take it the wrong way. So when you said that, I was like, light bulb.
Yes.
So I
You have
love
to,
it.
yeah, when you say that, you have to be able to control the conversation because some people get really pissed and try to hang up and stuff too because that number should be so low. It's like ridiculous. Sometimes they say okay, and I'm like, I can't even believe this. And we're like, okay, we'll go ahead and move forward then. But like most of the time, 90% of the time, it won't happen. So
Okay. And how many, what conversation is that? Like, how many conversations are you having with these sellers before? Like, do you just do one call to gather information and then a second call to close, or how many touches are you doing for each call?
yeah, I mean, typically it's a one call close. I mean, if you're
Okay.
cold calling, it's going to be a lot more difficult. I'll say that because the odds of them being ready right there at that time is going to be difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So my goal, and this is the goal of all sales, in my opinion, is to get them to the next step, right? So first we need to see if they're in. Oh, that's pretty cool. I did the thumbs up. But first they got to be interested in actually selling the property, right? Then we're going to find out their motivation, see their timeline, stuff like that. That's step number 2. Then step number 3 would be if we're in the price range. There, I would try to set an appointment or lock it up on the phone. If they're not ready to lock it up on the phone, I'm going to set an appointment. If they're not ready to move forward at all, then I would still probably try to set an appointment, or I would schedule the next call on what actually makes sense. A lot of times people don't ask enough questions or push hard enough, in my opinion, to set an appointment. And so they just kind of like, keep following up with people, even though like you never got anywhere in the conversation anyway. I'm going to go until the conversation doesn't make sense for us to keep talking anymore because we got stuck. And if I can't overcome it, then I'll schedule a follow-up call. But I'm going to go all the way that I possibly can. And most of the time I can get pretty dang far. And if it's not a contract, it's going to be at least an appointment.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they cancel on the appointment, it's still good to practice getting to that because I always say practice for the 80%. There's going to be 10% of people that are just going to be like, yep, I'll sell it for this. And there's going to be 10% of people that be like, no matter what you say, they're never going to sell. We practice for the 80%, the things that we're going to do 80% of the time, every single time. So no matter what the result is, we practice for them.
Okay. And I'm curious, but so because when you go into a conversation, you kind of have to know what your acceptance price is. So
Mm-hmm.
are you running comps on each property before you hop on a call with them, or what kind of due diligence are you doing before you hop on these calls?
That's a great question. I do zero due diligence before I get on the call. And so that's why it's so important to have this script embedded in your mind. Because what happens is I have a list of like 10,000 people and it's just automatically calling. So it's just going to pop up a name and a number. And then I'm just going right there. So I say, hey, this is Dakota. I know this call is completely out of the blue, but I was calling about a property I believe you own on 123 Main Street. Mm-hmm. They're going to be like, yeah, what about it? Because they don't know if you're the utility company. They don't know if you're a neighbor. They don't really know anything. And all you said is your name and like you were calling about a property that you thought they owned. And so then at that point, then they're going to be like, okay, what about it? Well, I was calling to see if you would consider an offer on that property. And then at that point, now we're seeing if they're, even interested. If they are, they're like, sometimes they're just like, yeah, what are you offering? Well, I like to offer you what it qualifies for. What can you tell me about it? And then I'm starting right there. I'm doing research. I'm Googling it. I'm looking at the tax record, but then I'm keeping the conversation going. I'm like, oh, I always start off too with repairs because it's logical, right? So I don't ever ask, oh, what's got you interested in selling right now? They're like, what are you talking about? No, I say, hey, what's the condition of the property? And they're like, well, what you call me and like, don't you have the information? Well, of course I don't know. It's similar to the same thing as sending the letter. We're asking logical stuff first. We're going to ask the emotional stuff second once we built the rapport. But you need to ask the logical stuff. That way, if you have a type A personality, like, why are you asking me this? Because I want to get you an offer. And in order for me to get you an offer, I need to know a general idea of the condition so I can guesstimate the repairs and I can get you to see if we're in the range. Does that make sense? Yeah, perfect. What's the condition? And then you can go into it from there. I forgot the beginning of your question. And so I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, because I asked you what kind of due diligence you do before, because how do you figure out what your acceptance price is? You know? And so so you're doing all this due diligence after they say, yes, I'm willing to, accept an offer, after you kind of, while you're building that rapport, and then after you do your due diligence, and that's when you hop into the emotional questions, because now you kind of know how low you need them to get in order to make it work for you.
I'm just guesstimating. And so what I always tell people is what we want to do is we want to gather as much information as we possibly can. If we're comfortable with making a decision right there, given the information that we have, cool, let's do it. But all I'm doing is asking them like their motivation, their timeline, the price that they want. I never offered anything. I'm never going to offer. So all I'm trying to do is pull it out. And if you don't feel comfortable doing it right there, what you can do is go through the script, say, hey, I actually don't have an offer right now, but what I'll do is I'm going to run some information and I'll give you a call back in 15 minutes. I would say you have a little bit lower of an acceptance rate because you have to call back. So that's why I like to do it on the phone. So what I do is I ask the questions, find out like where they want to be at. If it's even in the range, all I do is I lock it up contingent on a walkthrough. So I say, hey, it looks like other investors are paying around here to here. How much would you need? Oh, I need 70,000. Okay. It sounds to me like we might be in the range, depending exactly on the condition, because obviously all I did was take a guesstimation based on what you told me. Why don't we go ahead, move forward, take everything we talked about, put it in writing, and we'll just make it contingent on a walkthrough. Does that sound fair? And then boom, I'm sending them over a contract contingent on us walking through it, which gives us means to renegotiate it, but then also locks it up to where other people can't go take our deal, because we've had that. We've had some where we set an appointment 2 hours later, somebody else called and then they already sold it to somebody else. So we lock it up right away if we can. Yeah. If they don't want to, that's fine too. I'm just going to always ask the question in order to get them to that next step. If they don't want to, all right, cool. Well, let's come out there, take a look so I can get an idea on the exact condition of the property, and then I give you an exact number instead of a guesstimation, because that's really all we're giving them. Is a range. We don't know the exact condition. We don't know. There might be more square footage. There might be other stuff. But based on the information we have, we should be able to see if we're in the range, is what I call it. So if I'm within, like, I don't know where are you at, by the way?
Sacramento, California.
Okay. Yeah, so Sacramento. So you might say, okay, if we're within 50 grand, I'm going to go take a look. I'm more like, if we're within 20, I'm going to go take a look at it, because things can fluctuate. I might be able to move some stuff around. I might be able to do a novation. I might be able to, there's other options depending on how much room there is. But if they're asking retail and they come off 20 grand and that, I'm like, okay, there's no point in me even talking to you anymore based on this. It just doesn't make sense for us. So what I'll do is, I'll say, hey, I think it's your best option to probably list this with a real estate agent. Do you have an agent that you're working with? And then I would get a referral for that. So anyway, that's what I would do if they're not in the range at all. If there's a possibility that I think this could be a deal, even if it's like a 30-40% chance, I'm going to lock it up contingent on a walkthrough, and then I'm going to go see if it's actually a deal once I get my due diligence, once I actually get more information. But based on the information that I do have, I think it might be a deal. So that's basically how we do it.
Okay. And is that because are you getting all the leads in from the same cities or same states all the time, or are you just spread out over all 50 states?
Yeah, no. So I've done some deals down in Florida because I have a house down there, but we're mostly in Indiana. We have some that now, because we're in the upper corner of Indiana, so Michigan's really close and Ohio's really close, so sometimes we're getting some out there, but I would say most of our deals, I would say 90% are in Indiana.
Okay, so that's why you can kind of already know where that spread is. And
Yeah,
then,
and we have a calculator up. And so again, all I do is I take all the information because we're going into new areas now that are kind of difficult. And so like, we're going into Indianapolis. Indianapolis switches quick. And so sometimes it's like, oh dang, I don't even like know if this is a deal or not. So again, we just make sure we set the proper expectations. As long as we set the proper expectations, we're going to be good. But then also I'm using the information that I have. Obviously, we're going to use Zillow, we're going to use Realtor. I look at the tax website to see what the tax assess is at. I see what they bought it for. I'm looking at all the information that I can. We also have MLS access, so we can run comps. You can do this all while on the phone. Like I've done it all on the phone, but you have to have the script already embedded into your subconscious, which comes with that practice. That's why I said, like, if you just continue to practice, you're just automatically going to get it. Then you can have the conversation without even realizing you're having the conversation. And then I'm also taking notes on key things they're saying. So I'm doing three things at the same time. I'm having a conversation, I'm writing down notes of what they're saying, and then I'm running the research while I'm talking to them.
mm, wow, expert multitasker right there. So you have to be
Yeah.
able to multitask in order to cold call that way.
Yes.
And I'm glad you touched on the fact that you said that someone had picked up that deal just an hour later. So how quickly do you typically get to your leads as they come in?
That is something that I honestly I want our guys to get a little better at. I want them to be within the first, I mean, honestly, first 10 minutes. That's my goal. I say if they don't get to it in 15 minutes, any of the other acquisitions guys can take that lead from them. And so if they don't get to it, I'm like, hey, send them a text. If they don't get to it, then it's gone. So 15 minutes is really our rule.
Okay. Wow. And what kind of systems, processes, or I guess even like CRM are you guys currently using to like organize all of this?
Yeah. So our CRM is Ari Simply. We've been working with them for a while now. Ryan Pineda does not like me to talk about that on our sales call because he's got one too. I'm sure it's great. I have not used it. So Ari Simply, I really like them. The nice thing that we do that's very, very important is just setting up drip campaigns. So what we do is lead comes in, drip campaign starts. And we actually have a video that we have because I think video is always obviously important, which is why we're doing this and other people can see it. But the more that people see you, the more they feel like they know you. And so when we're on TV, then we send them a video. Now they feel like, oh, dang, I know that person. Now it's just not somebody texting them. Same thing whenever you hear somebody's voice, like who are you more likely to do business with? Somebody that you've seen and talked to or somebody that you were just texting and messaging? It's a lot easier to be like, hey, not interested, sorry, what was somebody else? But when you saw that person's face and you talk to them on the phone, it's a little bit harder to treat people like that. So we send a video right away and we're just like, okay, hey, this is our acquisitions team. They're going to be reaching out to you in the next couple minutes. And so that's automatically set up. That way, even if the sales guys do not follow up, that system follows up for them. And it makes them feel like it actually is them. So those are some of the systems that we have in place. I'd say follow-up is like the most important thing. Obviously, everybody always talks about that. The fortunes and the follow-up in sales. It's very, very important.
Yeah. I just had a phone call with Shanae today. Is that who you talked to?
Who is it?
She's a Shanae.
Is she with Ari Simply?
Yeah, she
Yep.
is. Yeah,
Yep.
she's awesome. But yeah, I've heard really good things about that one. So that's really cool. And when I guess as you're kind of going through the script and everything and you're getting these, and I just to clarify, a drip system, so that's just when something else touches it before you. So you have a systems and process in place like your video or text message that's being sent automatically without you having to do anything. That's what a drip system is.
Yeah, and it basically is a sequence of text messages that are going to go out and they're timed, and you already set it preset. Because again, like what I always tell people is you say the same thing 80% of the time, so you might as well just make that map and then have it automatically do it for you. And so that's what we do.
Okay. And that does the opening script, and then you hop on the call.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And so you call in between. And so even if you don't call, the thing is going to text it's basically every day for the first 5 days, and then it goes to every other. It'll follow up for the next like 7 months. And it'll automatically follow up for you because again, like you should be following up and doing it, but you don't have to do it manually. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there now that you don't have to do it all. Now you do have to pick up the phone and call the people. Like that's pretty important. Like I think you will close more deals over calls. I hate it when people negotiate over text. But it does happen. Sometimes people only want to text, but I would rather pick up the phone and talk to people. And then like, I think you're more likely to get a deal then.
Yeah. And what do you feel like you're doing differently today now that you've experienced and you have the script all automatically in your head? What do you feel you're doing differently today than what you were doing when you first started?
I mean, the biggest thing that I'm doing differently might not be helpful for everybody, but it's just having acquisitions guys. I'm not doing it. I mean, me personally, I'm very rarely on the phone. I love it though. Like it like gets me so hype. I'm like, oh dang, get me on the phone. Like I want to talk to people. Like I love closing deals, making stuff happen. But the biggest difference is I hired somebody else, actually multiple different people, to do it instead of me doing it all the time. And so they get paid 100% commission. And so in my opinion, they're kind of like free, even though they get paid real well. But like they're kind of free in the sense of like they're making it happen. And so that's the biggest difference is if you can afford an acquisitions, well, you can always afford an acquisitions person because they're 100% commission, so you pay them on the back end when you get paid. So that would be the biggest difference that we've made. Other than that, the other difference I would say from when we first started to now would just be when we first started, we kind of had to go off of like charisma and like my selling ability, I would say. Now we have a name, we have recognition. We're like the biggest home buyers in Fort Wayne. We have a ton of 5-star reviews. Reviews are so important for credibility and for people like choosing you. So people think we're like this big company, even though we're not that big. But like, yeah, they're like, oh, dang, like these are the big company and stuff. So that's made things a whole lot easier because I don't have to sell you on us as much. Now you kind of see the brand and then it speaks for itself.
Okay. Do you feel like your script has changed too, or are you following the same script that you used to start out?
No, so it's always changing. I listen to a lot of Jeremy Lee Minor, which is the photo that I sent you actually, which is funny. I like cropped him out. I was like, oh, that sucks. But
Sorry.
no worries. But I've used some of his stuff because our script is always ever changing. Now, a lot again of what we say is very similar, but he says things in such a way that I'm like, oh, that's so good. And so anytime I hear something from another salesperson, I'm always going to take it, adjust the script, or like see how it works. And I can also like I've been through so many scenarios that I kind of play them through my head, and I'm like, oh dang, that would work really well. And I kind of just know based on like how the conversations I've had. So one thing that he does is obviously tonality is important, but he'll ask them like let's just say that you're selling the house or whatever. He would say something like, you know, well, if we were able to buy this property from you and you were able to get into that next house and like, you know, you didn't have to worry about this one anymore, like what would that do for you? And they would be like, oh man, then I'd be able to like do this. I'd be able to go hang out with my family. I'd be able to like not worry about this anymore. You're like, okay, awesome. And what would that do for you personally? And then they're like, now they're talking about their feelings. Or like you could even ask them, well, what would that do for you, like for your feelings? And then you're like, and now they're actually imagining themselves on how they feel because people make decisions based on how they feel and then they justify it with logic. And so if you can tap into how they're going to feel and stuff, that's the biggest difference. And so another thing that we do is like, you know, he says, he kind of like, it's so weird to me. He scripts like asking questions and acting like he doesn't know what to say. And I'm like, that is so odd, but it works really well because you don't want to seem like a salesperson. That's the bad thing about me. When you see me, you're like, bro, this is a salesperson. And so like that kind of sucks in some sense because it makes it a little bit more difficult for me because I have the charisma and like, you know, the look. And so people are like kind of like they put their guard up a little bit more with me. But something that he does is just uses language like, does this sound like it could possibly be the answer you're looking for? Like he kind of acts like he doesn't know what he's going to say, even though he knows exactly what he's going to say. And then whenever they're like, you know, yeah, it actually does sound like that. You'd be like, okay, and why do you feel that way though? And then now they're describing to you the reasons of why they feel that way and why they want to go with you, what's important. And then they're basically selling themselves on the reasons of why it makes sense to go with you. So those are just some of the ways that we've kind of switched it. Whereas before, I'm just like, I'm so certain and I'm so like, I don't know the right word for it. I guess I'll use the word certain right now, but I'm just so certain that the decision is right for them because I listened to them on what they wanted that I can like kind of push a little bit more. Whereas now I kind of guide them on leading themselves. You should always lead with questions as opposed to statements. And I used to use more statements, I would say. And I was just so certain based on what they said that I would kind of use it against them. That sometimes can throw up some not red flags, but that can throw up some guards too. Of like, oh, now they're scared to say anything to you. So if you don't close the deal right there, they won't get back on the phone with you because they're gonna feel like everything that they told you is gonna be used against them. And so then they just like they'll hang up, and then you can't get them on the phone again because now they're scared of you. And so with this, if you're asking it, now you're asking questions in order to move it forward, but they never feel like, well, I won't say they never feel, they rarely feel pressured.
Okay. That's so crazy. So as a newbie, you're already kind of, talking slow, mixing up your words, kind of like getting actually talking like that. Oh, is this possibly something you can work for? And then you work towards to get really, really good. And then once you're really, really good, you try to now you have to train yourself to go back to sounding like a newbie.
1,000%. 1,000%. Yeah,
It's
because
a full circle.
100%, because everybody was like, "Oh man, that was so good!" Like you hear it close, you're like Andy Elliott. Everybody listen to that. I'm like, "All right, like guys, let's just go ahead and do it, move forward." And they're like, "Dang, that was good," and it's like that's effective. But there's more effective if the person doesn't even know that you're like selling them. Like that's way more effective when they don't feel like that, because now they're not going to change their mind. They're gonna be like, "Wow, that was my idea," as opposed to, "No, I just did that because I was in the moment, and now I have regret because I was being pushed, and I don't even know if that was my idea or not, or his idea." Now they're like, "No, I chose that,"
Yeah.
and they kind of like own it a little bit more if you frame it in the question in that way. Yeah.
And you kind of like build that rapport and that trust by just asking questions.
Yep.
Always asking
100%.
questions. Okay. And is that kind of what's my next question was going to be like, what's the biggest mistake you see even experienced investors still making?
Mm. The shoot, man, that's so difficult. I see most people, they give the sellers, in my opinion, too much money based on wanting to be their friend. And so like if you're in sales, you probably like people, and like you get emotionally invested where you want to help the person, right? Like I think that's a very normal thing for a salesperson to want to help the person to get to where they want to go. So sometimes we think that the price is going to help that, when really we're just like hurting ourselves, because then if we're wholesalers, we can't wholesale, we can't move it. Now we're in a whole pickle because we didn't get the price low enough. And so that's a big mistake. The other one is setting the expectations. If you're uncertain about something, I just vocalize my uncertainty. I'm like, "Hey, I'm not really sure about this. Here's the reasons of why I don't feel certain. I would feel more comfortable with these contingencies in place given my uncertainty. Can we move forward with that still? I'm still willing to move forward. I still want to make the deal happen, but here's the reasons or here's what I need in order to actually move forward with this." If you're wholesaling and you never plan to close it, you should always have that contingency in there. You should always be uncertain. You want to say, "Hey, it sounds to me like we're going to be in the range. Honestly, it's just a little bit more than what I was really hoping for based on what you're wanting. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and move forward today. It's just going to be contingent on my partner's approval. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to send some of my investors through there and see if I can find somebody to partner with in order to get this thing to the finish line. But I think that we can make it happen based on everything I'm seeing. So let's go ahead and move forward." Now you set the proper expectations. That way, if you do not find a partner, they know that. They're not freaking getting all their stuff unpacked, leaving the property, and then now you just left them high and dry. That to me is bullcrap and unethical. But if you set the proper expectations to say, "I cannot move forward because the price is too high and I don't feel comfortable," now you're setting like proper expectations. So that's in my opinion very important.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I love that you touched on that too. So once you have your script and you've memorized it and you've got some repetition in, kind of what is that shift you have to make from just getting them to say yes to getting it to be a home run deal for you?
Getting them to say yes to give me a home run. So that's a difficult one because everybody thinks that you're just gonna know. Like you're just gonna be like, "Man, I know this is a steal." Now sometimes there's ones I'm like, I just know, but I've done like we've done like 500 and some transactions now. So there's some that we just know. But a lot of times you don't know. You just don't. You're like, based on the information I have, I think this is something here. Like I'm pretty sure. And then you throw it out there, then you're like, "Oh dang, like somebody is willing to actually buy it for 30, 40, $50,000 more." You're like, "Holy crap." And then you know. So you don't really know until it's all the way done. You just have to take all the information and do the best that you can with the information that you have. Make sure that you account for your margin. Make sure it looks like it's actually a deal, because some people are like, "I don't know, let me just lock it up for retail and then throw it." And like, no, Like, we know that that's not it, but take as much information as you can, see what makes sense. And if you think there's margin there for somebody to make money, then cool. Now you have a best guess. And so I'm usually about 70 to 80% certain, and I'll move forward. Like, all right, based on what I'm seeing, I think we got a deal here. And I've been wrong. It happens about 1 to 2% of the time, but like I've lost a lot of money on some properties. I mean, we've lost like $40,000 on one flip. I mean, we've lost money, so it happens. But as long as you're making a ton more money than what you're losing, then at the end of the day, like, you just got to trust your gut, your intuition, and all the information that you have.
Yeah. And for someone who's just kind of building up their script, where would you recommend they go to kind of get that base foundation of script and to start building off of that?
Yeah, so Brent Daniels has an awesome script. I like Brent Daniels a lot. He's got a good one. I use a lot of his stuff. Steve Trang, his is pretty confusing in my opinion. I like him, but his is confusing. I'm like, oh, that's pretty complicated. Brent Daniels is so straightforward and so simple. So I would start off with him. Ryan Pineda, like, if you get into his program, then obviously you will get my script. You'll get coaching from me. I will also, like, if somebody wanted my script, I would sell it for $100. So if you want mine, I'll do that. In my opinion, it's pretty dang good because obviously I took everybody's and then I made mine based off of it, and I know it works really well. So,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Oh, that sounds like a great deal.
Yeah.
So everyone who's here, hold them to that.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I guess as we wrap up here and we start getting to the mock cold call, is there anything you feel like, I guess, with a more advanced portion of cold calling and negotiation tactics that you feel like we haven't covered that you want to throw in here for people to take away?
Yeah. So, I mean, the main thing, Brent Daniels talks about this too. So I basically look at the sales call in a couple different steps. So step one is just the introduction, right? That's just like, hey, I just wanted to see if you're interested. If they say yes, we're moving on to step number two. Step number two is going to be where you should spend 80% of your time. That is going to be where you're finding out, where are they at now? Where do they want to go? What's the condition of the property? What's their ideal timeline? What is the reason or motivation for them wanting to do that? And then step number three is going to be the price. But we should not, in my opinion, I know that I can't remember his name, the RJ Bates, he always says go straight to price and then go to the other stuff. I think that's very efficient in some sense, but I think that we get steeper deals because we don't do that. We go to the other stuff first. So I do not move on from step number two until I have all of that information and I feel like I have sufficient information in order to close the deal. So do not go to price until you know the condition, until you know the motivation, until like you have exhausted everything that you need in order to get that deal closed. And so there's different questions that you should be throwing in there. And I would say it should be a conversation, not an interrogation. It should flow. It should be like, they don't even know that you're following a script because it doesn't even feel like it's a script. But you know what questions you need to ask in order to find the information out. And then you just, basically what I would do if I was a beginner, have those things literally there and make sure that you do not move on until you have them. So the situation they're in now, the condition of the property, the timeline, the reason or motivation, and then you're going to go to price after that. So do not move on until you have those. Make sure you write them down because sometimes I'll go to price. I'm like, oh, snap, I forgot to get the timeline or something like that. Mm-hmm. So that would be my suggestion is 80% of your calls should be in that time. Other suggestion, especially for new people, man, they just like to sit there and talk. They're like, oh, if I just sit there and talk for an hour, I'm going to build so much rapport. The person, they're just going to love me. And then you know what happens? They go and sell it to somebody else. They're like, oh, dang, I thought we had a great relationship. I talked to him for an hour and a half about their granddaughter and this and that. It's like, bro, you got to stay to the point. And in my opinion, a call should take around 15 minutes. That start to building rapport, to finding out the situation, to closing the deal, it should be around 15 to 20 minutes max. If they start getting off track, you basically come back to the property. Hey, speaking of your granddaughter, does she come over to your house, and what's the condition like when she comes over? Like, you should always be bringing and guiding the conversation. It's your responsibility as the acquisitions person to control the conversation. Now, if they are talking about the house when you ask an open-ended question, let them speak for as long as they possibly can, because a lot of times they tell you information that they didn't want to tell you, but they're just flowing. So if they're talking about the house, let them talk. If they start going in la-la land, you want to bring them right back to, okay, hey, we're got to stay focused here. So anyway, that would be my advice to anybody having a conversation.
No, that is all gold. Thank you.
Yeah.
And are you talking direct to seller every time, or do you also talk to real estate agents?
Direct to seller, I don't really talk to agents. Agents and me don't vibe. Like we just we have different mindsets, and then a lot of times what I found is like I'm too assertive and too like straight to the point, and so agents, I don't know, they just like kind of have, in my opinion, like big egos. It seems like, and so they just like want to just like talk about how great they are and stuff, and I'm like, okay, like do you have anybody needs help? Like, no, we don't do that. Like, they just like they feel like our enemy. It seems like, and that's the way that they treat us. And so, I would like to build more agent relationships. I just do not focus on it at all. I'm focused on my team, building the team, and helping them. I should have them reach out to the agents, though. But no, no agents.
All right, I love that. Thank you. Because I know, a lot of people I feel like get a lot of pushback with real estate agents,
I
and
know.
sometimes just I don't get it.
Yeah,
Sometimes you get off the phone, you're like, do they want to sell the house?
yeah.
We were just talking to Amanda and David last week about this. It's like, you sure? You sure you want to sell the house? Doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, and I know people that have great success with agent outreach. Like, I mean, my friend, my business partner down in Florida, we did a wholesale deal down there, and we made, I can't remember, we made a decent amount of money, and that was from an agent outreach, and so that's how he gets all of his business in New York. And so I know people who only do that, and then I only go direct to seller. So that's what our specialty is.
Okay. That's incredible. Yeah, we need to we need to get someone to talk about agent outreach and how they just are they're agent whisperers out there. I don't get
100%. 100%.
it. Well, okay, so as we get into our cold call, which I'm really excited about because last week when we talked, you said that you very rarely are given curveballs or stumped by something sellers say. So that's going to be my goal for this call.
All right.
You ready?
I'm ready. Now, the interesting thing is going to be, okay, let me say this really quick too. My goal in a cold call is to qualify or disqualify. And so that's my goal, is to ask the right questions in order to find out if this person is motivated. And so if you throw too many curveballs where it's just like, this person's not interested, I'm okay with like, hey, sounds to me like we're not a good fit. And then I'll just go ahead and end the call. Which actually you were there when that other guy was doing that, when me and him were role playing too. But yeah, I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right.
All right, so I'm gonna cold call you. So yeah, ring ring.
Hello?
Hey, is it Miranda?
It is. Who's this?
Hey Miranda, this is Dakota. I know this call is completely out of the blue, but I was calling about a property I believe you own on 123 Main Street.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, I was just calling to see if you would consider an offer on that property.
I would. I would. We listed it, but never gotten any hits on it, so we were about to just getting ready to relist it.
Dang. Okay, that's awesome. Sounds like it's meant to be then.
Yeah.
I like it. What can you tell me about the condition or what's going on with it?
Well, I don't know. I believe my house is haunted, and I really don't want to pass that bad energy on to someone else, but for the right price, I think I'm willing to.
Oh, snap. Okay. When you say haunted, what makes you think that?
Well, the lights turn on and off sometimes, and, the toilet clogs only on Fridays. And, just always getting nightmares in that house.
Oh, wow. Okay. And then is there anything else that you would say like needs repaired at all?
Maybe the roof. Sometimes we hear scratching.
Scratching, okay. Well, it's like, is there any leaking or anything like that?
No leaking.
Okay. So you said the roof, and then it sounds like there might be some electricity or electrical stuff going on,
Yeah.
and then plumbing.
Yeah. The toilet floods only on Fridays, and on the weekends, the lights go on and off. Sometimes whenever my whole family's home.
Holy moly. Okay, that sounds scary. And how long has this been going on for?
Ever since we moved in about 5 years ago.
5 years. Okay, got it. And then what's got you thinking about moving like now?
Well, we really want to get away from this ghost that keeps haunting us. But like I said, I'm very hesitant about sending those bad energy on to someone else. But I'm ready to kind of move on and just get a house that we don't hear scratching in the middle of the night or doesn't have problems with electricity. And also my husband's getting a new job, so we're moving out of state.
Oh, dang. Okay. And where are you moving to? What state?
Montana.
Montana. Dang, that's awesome. Okay. Did you guys already get a property out there?
We're actually under contract right
Under
now.
contract. Okay. And then when does that contract, like, when do you need to close on that one?
The end of the month. It's about 30 days.
End of the month. Okay. So it sounds like it's pretty important to you to get out of the haunted house.
Yeah, yeah. For the right price, though.
Sure. Is there like is there like an ideal timeline? Obviously, is it just before that closing that's happening, or like what kind of time frame are you looking at then if you were to get the right price?
I'd like to close before we end up closing on the next house. Like to just, wash our hands of this place and continue moving on. But also, if that doesn't happen, we have some reserves saved up to hold us over for a few months.
Oh, got it. Okay. And then let's just say that like, the reserves happened and then nobody really wanted a haunted house. Like what would you do then?
We'd probably end up having to lower the price.
Got it. Okay. And then are you looking more to get the highest price? Or are you looking for like the simplest process?
Um, Simplest process. We want to least exposure to the outside world as much as possible.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I would say in order to get the highest price, obviously you do what you did, which lists on the market. It sounds like that might not have worked out. Maybe more people are scared of ghosts, but then yeah, what we do is we buy it cash as is. You can take or leave whatever you want. There's not appraisals. Uh, there's no inspections other than a one-time walkthrough. We won't have to even bring the ghost hunters in there for this one, and we can close at whatever time frame works best for you. So, like out of those two options, which one sounds more like what you're looking for then? Is it still the simplest process?
Yeah, yeah, that sounds good. Do you when you have to do inspections, do people have to come, or how many people are going to be walking through the
Sure.
house?
So it'll be our acquisitions person. They'll be coming through there and stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, we just do a one-time walkthrough. Sometimes if we see something that concerns us, then maybe we'll have to have additional people come through, like maybe the electrician or something like that. So it just really depends on if there's something that we see that we're not sure of. But when
Hmm.
when you say the simplest process, like why do you feel that way? Why do you feel like that's the right route for you?
Um, well, like I said, we want to limit the exposure of how many people are going through the house, just in case. We don't want the, ghost to move on to other houses. But also, we want to, close in a more mindly manner because we feel like if we put it back on the MLS, it might sit for another 3 months. So, I'm kind of looking for other solutions
Got
here.
it. Okay. Well, I mean, like I said, it sounds like it was meant to be because we called for a reason. I mean, is there a balance that you have on that one?
Uh, yes, yeah, we have about 300,000 left on it.
300. Okay. And then how much are you guys looking to like put down? Do you need money for the next one, or you sound like you have some reserves? So are you just looking to get the payoff, or
We do need a little bit down. We have a $10,000 HELOC on the property that we'd like to pay off at the time, and then we also want to, be able to buy new furniture since all of our furniture is haunted. So we need probably a good 20,000
okay,
to walk away from.
got it. Okay. And so you're looking for like around 310, it sounds like.
Well, we have some equity in the property. We have it probably, according to Zillow, we have like $100,000 worth of equity in the property.
Sure. Right. And so when you listed it and you tried to get that equity out and then it didn't sell, like what do you think that would mean then?
I mean, we probably have to, end up like sacrificing some of that equity
Hmm.
a little bit, but we're trying to walk away with as much as, we can with the simplest process.
Got it.
I think
Oh yeah,
my my husband, I think, only wants to, is willing to give up about 20,000 of equity.
oh, got it. Yeah. I mean, honestly, you probably give that up to the real estate agent anyway, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you listed it, let's just say you got 400. I mean, most agents are going to charge you 6%. So that's 24,000. And so, yeah, a lot of times you're going to give up equity for speed and convenience. So somebody like us, obviously, our goal is to make money on properties whenever we buy them. And so let's just say hypothetically we were to buy it from you for $20,000 off 400, and then we go to sell it. How would we make money then?
I see what you're saying. You guys, you wouldn't be able to kind of put more money into it and get more money out of it type of scenario?
Well, I don't know how we're going to put money into it to get the ghosts out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's going to be a hard one.
Yeah.
It's going to take a while.
Yeah, and so we're gonna take a risk there, which I'm willing to do. It's just like at the same time, like I've never dealt with a ghost house, honestly, and so I don't know exactly what that's gonna entail. So my goal would obviously be to get it for as low as we possibly can, because we bought properties and we've lost money before, and the lower that we buy a property, the less likely we are to lose money on it. You understand? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so our goal is to still make sense for you, and hopefully still be able to get you out of that house. I mean, what would that do for you if you're able to get out of that house, go to Montana, you don't have to worry about the ghosts anymore? Do you think that would be worth it?
Absolutely.
Okay. So if we could get you the 310, and you're still able to, get out of that, pay off your property, and then move to Montana, I mean, would that help you?
Yes, I'd have to double check with my husband, and I feel bad though because my realtor, she did list it on the MLS for us. She's done a lot of work for us. She's really nice. Would we be able to? Can I include her in this? Can I run this by her?
I mean, you can. And then you would have to you'd basically be taking the money and then paying her. So if you wanted to do that, that's completely up to you. The nice thing about like a real estate agent is if they don't, like, in my opinion, do their job, which their job is to sell the property. If that doesn't happen, it is just part of the business. You know what I mean? But that's completely up to you. If you want to involve her, then yeah, you would just pay for it out of your side. And so if we ended up buying it for $310,000 and you wanted to pay her out, then you would just give her an extra $20,000. And yeah, I mean, that's definitely up to you. Is that something that you want to do, or would you rather like not have any realtor fees or anything like that?
Yeah, I know, you know what, you're right. Probably want to stay away from that $20,000 fee. That's kind of a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like we're in the range. So why don't we just go ahead and move forward then? And so what I'll do is I'll go ahead and send this over to you, and then we can go ahead and move forward. And then it's going to be contingent on a walkthrough. How does that sound?
That sounds good. I'll run it by my husband. If he agrees to everything, is there anything I need to do, or do I have to sign anything?
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and send it over to you and him. And then did you guys already talk by chance about like everything? I mean, he knows that you're talking to us, right?
Yeah, he does. He's working right now, so I'll run it by him. I know he was wanting a little bit more equity, but I think we're really wanting to get out of this ghost house pretty soon. So
Got it. Okay. And then on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think he would say? Like 1 being he's going to say no, 10 being yep, he'd be ready to go right now.
probably like an 8.
Okay. And then what would you need to see in order to like make it a 10?
Okay. Maybe a little bit more money up front to make him a little bit more happy, so that way we're not just paying off bills and still walking away with nothing.
Gotcha. Sure. Okay. And so how much would you need in order to like, all right, we don't even need to talk to him. I already know he's going to be happy. How much would you need in order to feel comfortable with moving forward right now?
20,000.
So at 320, you'd be ready to move forward?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that'd make him happy.
Okay. All right. Well, what I'll do then, give me like 3 minutes. I want to put you on a really brief hold. Let me run my numbers. Honestly, that's a little bit more than what I was really thinking. And it kind of goes past my max offer, but let me just like kind of run some numbers and see if I can kind of squeeze some areas. Okay. So let me just be very clear though. If I can do 320, you're ready to move forward right now.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Give me 1 second. And then bam, I come back. Okay. So good news. I got really close. If I can do 312, I had to like squeeze it, but if I can do 312, can we go ahead and move forward and get this thing done right now?
Now let me put you on a brief hold. Let me just call up my husband real quick and run it by him. Would you mind waiting just a minute
That'd be
on
perfect.
the phone? All right. He says it's a go.
Let's do it. Cool. Yeah, so that'd be it. Bam, I'd send it over and we'd sign it. So the most important thing that I do there is I get them committed first. And then if you notice, I never even threw out a number. I am asking these people questions and stuff. And then I make sure that they're committed before we're even negotiating. I'm not going to negotiate on hypotheticals. I'm going to negotiate when they're ready to move forward right now. Other than that, they're just throwing out all the numbers. So that would be a very brief way of how I'd kind of go about it. So
Yeah, no, that was really good.
yeah, that was
Good
an
job.
interesting call. I've never seen one where it's like I've never heard that one. So you definitely gave me a weird one, but I would just feed into that just the way I did. Like I make jokes and I just like mess with people. So
Yeah, that was perfect. You handled it really well, and it was cool to see like because even though I mean on top of the haunted house, like I feel like the little curveballs that I gave you, with the objections, I feel like you wrapped it around really well, and it didn't feel like you were pushing it all.
great.
At least on my end. So it just felt like a regular conversation. It felt like I was kind of in control with you asking me questions because I'm just constantly telling you what I want rather than you asking if what you want is okay.
Yep,
Yeah,
100%.
like that was great. Exactly, spooky season. It's perfect timing.
Yes.
I typed into ChatGPT the seller what sellers what like crazy stories sellers would give real estate investors, and the ghost one got me. I loved it.
That's
ChatGPT
awesome.
is so
Yeah, I've
annoying.
never heard that before. We bought a lot of houses. Now, I've heard that houses were haunted. We actually own this big mansion that everybody said was haunted because it had college students and they pulled cadavers and stuff. Like they went and grave robbed.
Oh.
But like, I've never heard that. Like people telling me that's the reason they want to leave. I'd honestly be a little bit more freaked out. Now we bought some weird ones with some weird stories though. But yeah, not like that.
Yeah. Well, that was really great. I hope everyone enjoyed that. I
Yeah,
know I did. And I learned a lot, even just being on this side of the conversation. It was really
that's
cool.
awesome.
So
Yeah,
thank
thank you
you.
so much for having me. I really appreciate you. I'm a little disappointed that it wasn't at 5 Eastern Standard Time. I feel like I would have been more hyped up because I was like high energy, but hopefully it still went okay.
No, you're amazing. Thank you so much. You dropped so many golden nuggets for us today. And if people want to continue to learn from you or want to reach out to you, where can they find
Yeah,
you?
I mean, hopefully it pops up here on my Instagram. But yeah, just follow me on Instagram. You can always message me there. I usually keep social media on my phone. Sometimes I delete it, but yeah, just message me on there and we'll be happy to help.
All right. Do you offer any training for these services outside of Ryan's team?
So I was, and now I just don't like to do it anymore because like I train our acquisitions guys and I love to train other salespeople and it was kind of fun. But then like I get stuff that was just so specific to our guys where I'm like, hey guys, we're gonna change the whole time to this. We're gonna do this, and so I like to talk to them directly. So I don't offer it anymore. So if you want to sign up with Ryan, just let me know. Let Ryan know that I sent you, so I can get hopefully a referral as well. But yeah.
Absolutely. You're awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. This has been
Thank you
great.
so much.
All right. Bye, everyone.
All right. See you. Bye.